the look that often signifies raw desire on the rise, flickers in your searching eyes. Now the heat begins to rise. Hot pursuit intensifies, flaming in your searching eyes. Is it merely something we desire? Maybe just a triumph we aspire? Or a basic need that we require? So this tiny spark becomes a fire. That glowing object of desire. Welcome, family. What's up, T?
What's up?
To another episode of Flow and Tell. This week, I thought what we would do is get a little bit more into something I think most people have an opinion about or have a perspective about, and that is we have here. Desire. When we think about human emotions, if we think about actually just kind of going back a little bit to the Bible, to the scriptures in Genesis, in the story about Adam and Eve, and we know Adam is atom, right? We are made of atoms, atomic man. Adam is atom, as we talked about earlier in our other episodes. But the very first emotion, I would say, if we're looking at it from, this is very metaphysical, because we can't, we don't know. After the idea of consciousness itself, meaning, I'm aware, therefore I am, right? When consciousness, awareness, just being aware is consciousness. Well, if we think about God as the supreme or the one consciousness, and then we kind of fast forward to, where we are now with what we perceive as, this is part of creation. Well, what would have been, this is hypothetical, what would have been God's first action after the I am? And this is hypothetical. The Alpha and the Omega kind of is basically saying there's no beginning, there's no end. It's literally like a circle, right? But for our minds, for our conscious minds, if we were to think of it in linear terms, which is how we conduct a lot of what we do, we would say consciousness, and then the very next thing, shall we say, creation. Why was there a creation? Well, it would only be for one reason. God desired to create, right, Tony?
That's right.
That would be, it would be, I want to do this for whatever the reason, but desire would be that act of creation. the God force or the highest or primordial consciousness desires to manifest itself in this, myriad of ways. Okay. And if we also go to the story itself of Adam and Eve, we said Eve was life-giving spirit. Eve is also representative of the subconscious mind, the divine feminine. Adam, as a man, would be the masculine. Just to jump, we know that this word is actually this word. Human. Hue relates to light. So in effect, we're saying, your consciousness, the animating spirit within you being of light and the atom, you get human, right? We are all human. We are part divine, part animal. Human, the light man. The light has been ensouled into a physical, animal, terrestrial body. So anyway, desire. So the first chapter of Genesis, we talk about once, Adam's created and then Eve comes on the scene. What is the first, I would say, illustration of the emotional nature in man? Well, it would be, remember Eve was tempted by the serpent, and then she ate the fruit and then gave to Adam and he ate the fruit, right? But why did Eve instigate Adam into eating the fruit? Desire. The serpent told her it was good for food and something that would make one wise, right? So she desired. So desire, in my opinion, it is probably the strongest emotion that we have. It drives us to do things or not do things, right? Depending upon what outcome we're seeking. But we make choices throughout our day, every day, based upon what we desire to do, what we desire to buy, what we desire to spend our time with, right? So I thought it would be kind of cool to maybe, we're in December and it's a holiday season. And when you're a kid, for kids that grew up with Christmas or whatever, you had, when you were a kid, you wanted to get that new train set. And that's for those of you who are a little older that actually remember we have physical model train sets that we played with, with tracks and what have you. It wasn't all on a video screen, but we had the actual hardware. And, you wanted to get the new bicycle or the new, racing car set or whatever. It was a desire, for what you wanted from Santa Claus or whomever. So desire is that motivating engine that we all have, in varying degrees. And it's something because we saw what the result was with Adam and Eve, right? They're banished. They wind up becoming banished from the garden because of the quote unquote act or disobedient act of eating the fruit. We won't go into all of that as we've discussed it in the past, back in Genesis and so forth. But it just bears reminding that this thing here, the desire engine, is what really, really pushes us. I mean, we have certain basic needs that we all have to have, right? You have to have food, water, shelter, clothing. Well, you don't have to have that, but Most of us would want to have that. But anything beyond that are desires, right? You have your needs, and then you have what you want beyond what the basic needs are. So it's a huge motivator, and it's engaged in every aspect of our life. You know, you desire to be in a healthy relationship, most of us. You desire to have a healthy family life. You desire to be effective on your job or profession or occupation, right? So we have all these desires, and the trick, as we saw in Genesis, is how do you temper, modulate, or balance where desire can take you? Because desire, you know, if you want something enough, it can become a weakness, meaning a weakness in your personal, your discipline and your constitution. So, you know, how do you want to get what you want, but do you get what you want by any means necessary? Or, you know, is there a gray line? I'll only go this far for this, even though I really, really want it. You know, how much do you push for what you desire? And I thought, you know, maybe we'll do a few videos of this because it's, you know, it's a big subject. But say desire in the context of a relationship. We talked about that, you know, the point of coming to terms with your shadow and healing yourself, that we've all suffered any number of traumas, you know, going back to our childhood and before, because of our ancestral lineage. We know, you know, scientifically that with DNA, certain patterns can persist generationally. And the Bible calls it generational curses. You could call it, you know, patterns of behavior, whatever you want to call it. But we know that it's real, and it can persist. So the idea is to get healed enough that we become healthier as an individual, and therefore we are at least in a position to be in a healthy relationship with another healthy individual. And when I say healthy, I'm not talking about perfect. I'm talking about, you know, again, the whole thing is about balance in life. You're not gonna not make mistakes. You're gonna make misjudgments. That's not the issue. The issue is, can you really be in a healthy relationship if one or both parties in the relationship is not, shall we say, you know, I'm not a medical doctor, so I was going to say psychologically, but we'll say spiritually. You know, we're speaking metaphysics here, right? We're students, and we are, you know, testing, shall we say, improvisational hypotheses as we go along. But the Bible even refers to be ye not unequally yoked. You know, and the reference, of course, is taken as a marriage of a husband and a wife. You know, you should be, at least where I came up, you should be of the same faith, and this or that. You're going to have issues. Well, I would go further than that. Be ye not unequally yoked means that if you have a healthy person and a person who is not healthy, you're unequally yoked. There's going to be an issue, because what we've all learned, or we are all learning, is that you can't save anybody else. You know, you can barely save yourself. All we can do is be of assistance to each other and aid to each other as we go through this journey of life. And we're those, you know, for those of us who, when we do need a helping hand, we hope that there's someone to, you know, receive us in our times of need. But no one can make anybody else do those things if they're resistant to it. So, for instance, when we say spiritual maladies would be, with the psychotherapist, would be talking about the psyche. And we kind of refer to it as the spirit in the metaphysical realm, right? It's kind of more or less one and the same. So again, I don't want to venture into the area of medical professionals. So we're just exploring the terrain of, if desire can be of many different combinations. It could be, maybe it's a physical attraction that you have to another person, or just that. And it's not, you don't even know the person, but you're physically attracted. Well, that's nature to kind of magnetize you to each other. But as we know, in a relationship, ultimately it's going to take more than the physical. It's going to take more than sex to hold a relationship, or for a relationship to prosper. That's just one component, right? It may be a very strong component, when you're a younger person and you feel like you got all the time in the world and you want to taste different flavors and try different things, and that's cool. But, the relationship, I would say, is basically a contract or an agreement with two parties that more or less of a like mind, right? So in other words, if you agree to be in a relationship where your partner wants to be polyamorous, wants to have, one or more other partners, if you agree with that, then there's really nothing wrong with that relationship, because you are both in agreement and you are both in the know. It's only when it's held back, when it's a secret from the other partner, that there basically has been a breach of the contract. And whether or not it's a written marriage document, I'm not speaking about that. I'm talking about a spiritual contract where you have an agreement with another human being on something. That is also, spiritually speaking, a contract, a bond that has been formed. So as long as, again, whatever the parties agree to, as long as you're consenting adults, right, and it's quote unquote not unlawful activity, cool. I mean, no one can really say anything about that. But the relationship desire, say I'm in a relationship and our agreement was to have a monogamous relationship, and I desire someone else. Now, the desire isn't necessarily the issue, right? Because you're going to have desires. They're going to come up. That's the reason why in the Adam and Eve story, the serpent represents desire. What did it say? It's a very subtle beast, as the Bible refers to it. It's very subtle. You don't see a snake slither. You don't see that movement. It's very subtle. It creeps up in you just like an urge or a desire would. So that desire, or it could be, in its more intense form, lust, right? Desire, passion, lust, whatever. If that basically pushes me to breach the contract I have with my partner, spouse, whatever, then, this isn't necessarily a good thing in that context. It's a good thing to move us forward in life and to go out and get an education and a good gig and a profession and express yourself or whatever. But when it causes you to break contracts and break agreements that you have, then there's the flip side. That's the shadow side of desire. You might really be attracted to another person, but you have a commitment. And that's the reason why I think we're going to see this shift in this. We talked about the flow, the change in energy, and we can see it already in our society, that I think people are going to begin to reassess, hey, maybe I don't want to get married. Or maybe I don't want to be in a strictly monogamous relationship. Well, if that's what your desire is and you are able to connect with others who have a similar desire, okay, that's cool. You're in agreement. The trick is when desire pushes you beyond what the original agreement might be between you and yourself, you and another person. So we're going to do a few more videos on this, but I just thought as an introduction, you can kind of get it in your heads as well that, desire, there's an old saying I think that a gangster in the mob would say. I think it was, I can't remember which city it was, but he said, if it makes your heart race, it's a weakness. Because these guys are always looking for a weakness, right? If your weakness is gambling, if your weakness is, women or men or whatever the case may be, there's always going to be somebody there to fill that need. So making your heart race is kind of showing you right there desire, and that it can be a weakness or it can be a locomotive to push you towards your goals, to push you to things you want to accomplish. So once again, we're back to that duality of our experience and how things have a positive side and a potentially shadow side. We won't get too much deeper into that, but we'll maybe come back and we'll talk about desire in the context of relationships, because I really think that's where we are now, is where there is a re-examination by participants that are in, whether it be an out and out marriage or whether it be a domestic partnership or whatever. I think we're going to see people begin to reassess, hey, just what am I looking for? What's my value system? Is this something that is enhancing my experience of life, sharing it with this other person, or is it a compromise that I feel that I'm only doing for expedient purposes, right? Got to get the bills paid, got to do this, got to do that. And we know there's a cost there's always going to be a sacrifice to the decisions we make. So anyway, again, we'll probably come back with a little bit more on relationships and why they are so tricky in navigating when you have people that, again, may be at differing levels of spiritual health, and therefore, you're not going to make life easier if you have a bag of troubles and your partner has a bag of troubles and you bring them together. All that happens is now you have two bags of troubles, right? So I think it'll be interesting because, no one's an expert on this. I mean, relationships, desire, we're talking about very, very difficult terms to pin down in the language and really resonate in a way that we can find a common thread between all of us, because we all have different desires, right? Different things that, I like this and you like that. But the concept, that pull, that magnetism, that thrust, that desire bespeaks, I think we all can find a similar perspective in that this is the engine for, I would say, for all of us in this life, is this. And as a consequence to that, how are we able to manage that? Are we using this to, again, accomplish our dreams and move our life forward? Or is this thing going to be a stumbling block because we haven't disciplined ourselves, we haven't disciplined our appetites and our emotions, and this thing sends us over the edge? Anyway, once again, we thank everybody for being back with us here on Flow and Tell, and we will catch you. Actually, we're going to have a track, a musical track that'll follow this that deals to a certain degree with desire and a relationship, but and that's going to be called, what's it called, T? Playing No Games. Anyway, check it out. Peace, ashe. Thank you.